So if you have kids, you've had this happen on more than one occasion. You give them a chore to do, you send them around the house to get things done, and you go back to inspect and you say, are we all set? And they say, yep, we're all done. And you go back and you look and you call them back to where you asked them to do the chore because it wasn't done the way you asked. Now, admittedly, as adults, if we're honest with ourselves, we do that as well at our jobs, in a variety of circumstances. But we also do this with God. And there are times in which God calls us to do things in our lives. He challenges us to a particular task or says, this is my expectation of you, whether it's from His Word or through prayer or through the witness of those who we've surrounded ourselves with for counsel. And God clearly tells us to do something. And we go so far with Him, but not all the way. It reminds me of when Saul was rejected as being king over Israel. Saul started way up here with his potential, and then he had this slow degradation of his ability to be the king over Israel, where God finally rejects him. And the scriptures say, 1 Samuel 15, verse 11, I regret that I made Saul king. And where this comes out of, where his regret comes out of, is the fact that he called Paul to do a very specific thing. When they went out to war, he said this in verse 3 of 1 Samuel 15. Now go and strike Amalek and devote to destruction all that they have. Do not spare them, but kill both man and woman, child and infant, ox and sheep, camel and donkey. He was supposed to destroy everything. That was the charge. Moving down in the passage in verse 9, but Saul, and the people spared Agag and the best of the sheep, of the oxen, and of the fattened calves and the lambs and all that was good, and would not utterly destroy them. You see, he took what God wanted and he tried to improve upon it and do it his own way. And as a result, he was rejected as king. He even went so far as to argue with Samuel to say that he had done exactly what God had wanted. But then Samuel says to him, what is this bleating of sheep in my ears? In other words, why didn't you do everything that God asked you to do? And as such, he was rejected. Friends, as we consider our life, God has promised as Christ's followers, because of the righteousness given to us by God through His Son, Jesus Christ, that He will never leave us nor forsake us. But could I commend to you that as God calls you to do something, that if we are not willing to go all the way with what He has called us to do, that there's going to be consequences, that there's going to be trouble, that we are not going to be living into God's greatest good that He has for us. It doesn't mean that it'll always be easy. It doesn't mean that it won't be tempting like it was for Saul to set aside some of the things that looked good for yourself and do it in the name of God. But ultimately, sometimes God is going to ask us to do difficult things. He's even going to ask us to do things that are going to challenge our sensibilities and say, why in the world would I pass up this particular thing when God has told me to do this? So I'm only going to go part way. I'm going to go this far with God, and I'm going to leave the rest to what I want. Friends, that puts us in a very bad position with God. Could I encourage you today to examine your life as I'm examining my life? And I'm looking at the things in my life where I've only gone part way with God, part way with Jesus, where He's asked me to go this far and I've only gone this far. And I'm rethinking certain things in my life and saying, how can I go all the way? How can I, no matter what it costs me in this world, go all the way with God and all the way with Jesus, in order that I will not suffer a similar consequence as Saul? Not necessarily because I don't get what I want, but to see myself in a position where there's distance between me and God because I did not respond to Him well. That was the major problem for Saul, is the distance that was created between him and God because he wouldn't go all the way. I don't want any distance between me and God, friends, and I don't want any distance between you and God. So go all the way with Him. Challenge yourself. Seek Him. Be bold in what He asks you to do as we seek Him, serve Him, and treasure Christ together.